fly is called the Ropp's Redfish bendback. It was first done by a friend of mine, John Ropp. It was kind of an ingenious fly. Everybody is familiar with a woolly booger. This is a bent back woolly booger with a weedless wing, which makes it completely unique. We start this fly out with brown Flymaster Plus. I'm going to tie it in right at the bend of the hook. By the way, if you don't know how to properly bend one of these must-add hooks, definitely look back at one of my older videos about the proper way to bend make a bend back or bend a hook. I'm going to have a small brass eye, tie it in, get it squared up. Then we're going to tie all the way back down the hook. Now, of course, the next part is get some nice brown marabou. And tie that in on top. You notice that this is about the length of the hook shank. Next is a couple of strands of Rootbeer Krystal flash. Now I'm going to take 2 strands, cut it in half, making 4. And we're going to V that in, so some strands on your side and some strands on my side. And next, a bit of glue. This Dave's Fleximent, just kind of lock everything down into place. Okay, I'm going to go forward to right behind the brass eyes, and I'm going to tie in some brown Aunt Lydia's rug yarn. This is a good sparkle yarn. It's mainly Antron. And tie that all the way back to right on top of the jam knot from the marabou. Next is I'm using a brown badger saddle hackle. I'm going to tie that in back. And I'm going to bring my thread forward to in front of the brass eyes. Capture the saddle hackle on a pair of hackle pliers and kind of backstroke this feather so it will open up for me. Okay. Now I'm going to lay glue in all the way down the shank there. Just kind of beef it all up and make sure that it doesn't come apart the first time a fish looks at it. I'm going to wrap one wrap of the yarn behind, and then I'm going to do one full wrap of the hackle. Again, back to the yarn, one time around, bring the hackle in, one time around, the yarn again, the hackle, kind of squishing the hackles in between this yarn. It just builds up the durability of the fly. Okay, I'm going to tie off the hackle. Pop that off and get myself right up in front of the thread, or in front of the eye again. I'm going to pull the hackle back. Now I'm going to overwrap the brass eyes here. I'm going across and away, then I'm wrapping under and behind the brass eyes, and then I'm going the opposite direction, across and toward the back, and bringing the yarn right up underneath the brass eye where I'm going to tie it off. Cut that off. Get her all cinched down. And I'm going to put another drop of glue in up at the head. Now, if I stopped right now, this is a classic woolly booger. However, I'm going to put a wing on it. So I'm going to reverse it in the vise so it's a little easier for me to put the wing in. And I'm going to take some brown bucktail. Not too much, but a fair amount. This is the weed guard. Knock all the fluff out. Okay, make sure you thread back at this point to the brass eye. Okay, I have my wing, and measure that out, but I'm not going to trim the end of the bucktail. I'm going to put some nice tight wraps, trying to keep that bucktail right up on top of the hook, and I'm going to thread all the way back to the hook eye, or all the way forward to the hook eye, and get it all cinched down. Again, I'm going to use a couple of strands of the Rootbeer Krystal flash. I'm going to fold them across the thread, and I'm going to tie them in. Okay, now this front end piece, I'm going to cut it so it's all nice and even and about a 1/4 inch or so long. I'm going to trim that off. Now again, make sure you're up near the brass eye with your thread, and I'm going to fold this over the top, and I'm going to tie it in. Just right there behind, or in front of the brass eye. This little mustache here is what makes this fly so darn weedless. It just pushes the weeds right up over the top, but it doesn't have, you know, your typical mono weed guard where it's sharp and pointy. Sometimes a fish will bite onto a monofilament weed guard, you know, get poked in the mouth and realize that it's not something that he wants to eat particularly. You know, spit it out before you get a chance to set the hook. Now this fly is done. Let me whip finish it real quick. Okay, that's your Ropp's redfish fly. Now, a little bit of glue too. One last little bit. Now, this fly is excellent for redfish, as well as I've caught a heck of a lot of sheephead on this. You know, they think it's a nice shrimpy pattern. You know, the classic down and brown for redfish seems to work very well on the sheephead as well. I've caught trout on this. I've caught quite a few different species actually. Anything that'll eat a shrimp will definitely give this a good look. This is the number 4 Mustad 34000, or I'm sorry, 34011. I like the long shank hook for this. And like I say, the beauty of it is that you can drag this right through the weeds and not end up with a bunch of salad on your fly. I haven't ever had any issues with hookup on this. The fish, if it grabs, it'll hang on to it for just a second, and you can usually get them stuck. Anyway, that's the classic woolly booger with a wing, the Ropp's Redfish Magic. I never claimed that it wasn't an ugly fly.